right. I'm going to stand up. I have a light voice, and I've been told no one can hear me past the second row. So we're going to take turns going back and forth. But, now he's gone, and he can't hear me through there. Thank you, John. It's just such a pleasure to be able to read here. They welcome poets and all sorts of writers and events like this. So I just want to pass on our thanks. So I guess I'll say it twice when I go back out there when he can hear me. And I will let Shawn go next.
We're going to be doing a lot of this up and down.
Yeah.
Well, I want to echo the gratitude. Oh, the door's closed. Yeah. But isn't this a wonderful, warm, and cozy and dry place to be enveloped in poetry and all these beautiful books and pre-loved books? And I just think it's wonderful. It's a perfect place to have a reading and to gather with friends. So, it is truly my honor to be able to read poetry with a high caliber poet such as Judith Montgomery. And I'm sure she doesn't need much of an introduction, but I am going to introduce her nonetheless. Judith Montgomery's poems appear in Poet Lore, Cider Press Review, and Epiphany, among other journals and in many anthologies. She's published 2 full-length books and 4 chapbooks. The first, Passion, received the Oregon Book Award for Poetry. Her prize-winning narrative medicine chapbook, Mercy, 2019, was then followed by The Fairy Keeper, which chronicles her care for her parents on their final journey, and which received the 2024 Grayson Books Chapbook Prize. Judy says she struggles with first drafts, loves revising, and finds pleasure in giving advice on how to order poems in a chapbook. She even brought copies of her rule of thumb chapbook guidelines to share with all of you. It's my pleasure to introduce Judy Montgomery.
And it is my pleasure to introduce Shawn Aveningo Sanders. And you may know her as a publisher and book designer, running a local poetry press, The Poetry Box, with many gorgeous covers from her husband, Robert. She's also a poet with over 250 poems published in journals such as One Art, Cloud Bank, who has never taken one of my poems, and so Contemporary Heidlin Online. Shawn is a multiple Pushcart Prize, Best of the Net, and Touchstone Award nominee, and has won prizes from the Oregon Poetry Association. Her new chapbook, Pockets, was a finalist in Concrete Wolf's chapbook contest. And she is also the author of What She Was Wearing from 2019, a hybrid chapbook that reveals her Me Too secret after 30 years of silence.
Thank you, Judy. And so we just want to let you know a little bit about how today is going to proceed. We plan on spending about 35 to 40 minutes sharing poems in conversation. And we'll be covering poems from our new books and also some new work. And we'll be touching on themes such as family, children, our parents, love poems for our spouses, poems about illness and caregiving for our loved ones. And then finally, we'll share poems about the social ills of our world and how to hang on to hope. And afterwards, we highly encourage you to join the conversation. So be thinking about your questions about maybe writing on these themes, any questions you may have about publishing, or about how to put together a award-winning chapbook. So please don't be shy at the end and save up your questions and comments. So I thought I'd start out with a bit of a Ars Poetica to kind of kick things off. I wrote this poem about 14 years ago when I was trying to figure out what this whole poetry thing is really all about and what it means to be a poet. And maybe some of you have had similar experiences. In from out of the cold. My pen has a case of the dry heaves, writhing over a blank page, all retch, no vomit, not even a couplet to catapult me into writing a bad poem. I often wonder what makes a good poet. Do they don monogram shirts with hidden pockets full of verse? Do they wear prescription lenses tinted in such a way that life is always viewed as a metaphor? Maybe it takes the right name, followed by initials of academic achievement. I search for the answer at a local open mic, where a man reads his poem to the crowd, his voice cracking, his hands trembling, his notebook twitching in a fit of nerves. I switch my focus to the audience, full of burgeoning poets awaiting their turn, shuffling through papers, oblivious to the man's words, worried about how much time he's taking. I decide in that moment I will no longer write to impress. Instead, I want to be the poet who moves the stranger in the back of the room, who just came in for a cup of coffee to get in from out of the cold. I've always believed it's the details that create authentic emotion in our poems. As poets, we are witnesses, bringing the beauty of ordinary things to life. I invite you to listen as Judy does exactly that in her poem.
I don't often get such gracious introductions. Thank you. This poem has that same cup of coffee that was in her poem and a similar crowd where paying attention is of paramount importance. And I think that paying attention is the poet's calling, but there's no reason it can't be anybody's calling. For instance, a retired nurse, as my friend is here. This poem is called Hideaway Bakery, which is an actual bakery in Eugene, and it is hidden away, and you have to find it next time you go there. Hideaway Bakery. Zipped up in the ripe squash-colored jacket, a woman edges sideways the globe world of her body. She's so ready to give birth, she can't fit through the skewed aisle of chairs and tables rucked aside by us, oblivious over lattes and berry butter pastries. Close focused on laptops, our solitary faces blued above the table's warm maple. We're heedless of the passage of ordinary beauty flaring every corner of this room. Look, I want to cry, to each of us make-shifting the day beneath the lamp's amber cones. We're barely breathing through this drizzled afternoon, almost missing the sun wonder among us, the woman's great rolling gait, blooming belly, radiant womb. Next, we're going to move to family writing, beginning with children.
Speaking of swelled bellies and that beautiful womb, I offer you this. Flickering. A little pocket of pre-dawn light, a flickering in an otherwise dim, cloudy sky, peeks through an open slit between two gingham curtains. I stir to a flickering in my belly, a momentary spasm where, in my barely awakened state, I am transported back to when I was a mere 23, and a welcomed, flickering flutter of your teensy toes said, "Hello, Mama," for the very first time.
Oh.
So children, big life change, love, Yes, but especially exhaustion that I remember. And then responsibility. All of a sudden, you're responsible for this child or children. I have two sons who are now in their 50s, and I still worry about them. So this poem is from that long time ago. It's a sonnet, which I don't often write in form, and it's dedicated to my younger son, Alex. Card party. Now pause as mothers everywhere do pause. One hand to curtain, knob, or nursery door, to listen for the breath that lifts before the silence of the heart stopped without cause. Anyone may chide us, we turn and laugh. Of course the baby's fine, we say, and sip our wine, poke the fire, paint a redder lip, refill the nut dish, play a heart, or pass. And yet the house heart beats elsewhere, above the merriment, the card bright air, the din. We slip away to listen, certain of a pillow slipped, a choking toy, our sin. And bent like tardy angels overhead, we breathe again with him to heal our dread.
And in the blink of an eye, we go from caring for our little ones to caring for our parents. This next poem is about what happened after I donated a kidney to my dad. It starts with an epigraph. Fully aware that there is no adequate answer, we offer a tattered, inadequate little bouquet of language. George Bilger, Poetry Town. 2 years. When they learn he lived for 2 years after the transplant, they always ask me the same 2 questions. Was it worth it? Do you have any regrets? And every time I am gobsmacked. Such audacity slaps me like February wind whipping the Mississippi under the old Eads Bridge. And then I see the innocent curiosity in their eyes. How could they know? About that day we spent at Butterfly House. Dad's first summer sporting my kidney like a new pair of Bermuda shorts. How when he tried on that silly caterpillar cap, I giggled like a 4-year-old little girl. Or the home run taste of Budweiser at our last Cardinal game when Holiday rounded third. How when confessing his mistakes, he found forgiveness in my eyes and could finally drop the stone he carried in his heart pocket. Or how success of the operation isn't measured by mere years, rather by grains of sand, each one adding to the castle a girl built with her dad. How the low tide of his passing could never wash that away. An old man walks into the room. With him, the scent of my father's aftershave.
So this book, The Fairy Keeper, is about my caregiving for my parents primarily in the last years of their lives. They were married for 68 years when my mom died in 2011. They both lived into their 90s. And my dad mostly had physical ills, but his mind stayed really sharp. My mother slowly slid into Alzheimer's over the years. And of course, you look back later after you finally get the diagnosis, which was just 2 years before she died, and you can see all the things that are happening beforehand. So this poem is really about both of them and their complete dedication to each other. On the comb as outward and visible sign, her white hairs bend wind-roughed, the way a dandelion's haloed globe drifts open. And when my mother stops 4 steps inside our home, My father stops behind her and draws her comb, blue as the Virgin's cloak, from his pocket. With exquisite care, he redeems each blown strand into its proper curve, although she does not know she's mussed, or even that he combs, her arms already open to claim the hug she craves from each of us, while the eager spaniel wreathes about our halted bodies, while my husband waits to slip inside and shut the door behind. It's as though every atom in the room lights here, on the comb, on my father's office of attendance. He who abandoned what he thought was a calling to the priesthood, leaving off the white collar, shutting firmly behind him the brass-hinged seminary door, to step, bride, glowing on his arm, into this other future of devotion, vowing to make her life at last perfect, and she perfectly loved. And here she stands, her hair gleaming, even while her mind dims, as the ministering comb is raised and stroked and lowered, and our family stops, lowering its head to bow again before the contract, the blessing.
Oh, Judy, I love that poem. I love the way it mirrors all the little moments that comprise a great love. And in honor of the great loves of our lives, we'll each share a love poem. Shape of your mouth. Sometimes when I hear your voice, I imagine the shape of your mouth. As you form the words, each syllable, the crispness of consonants, mellow vowels oozing between. I remember the shape of your mouth, sharing heirloom tomatoes over the sink, juice dribbling down our chins, me reaching across to wipe yours with my fingertips, you catching mine with your tongue, salt of flesh pairing with the ripe fruit. I remember the shape of your mouth as you leaned across for our first kiss, lips adjusting for the fit, space between tightening, tiny pocket of air we shared. Yes, I remember the shape of your mouth and the taste of that last kiss before they rolled you away for surgery. How I traced that shape over and over atop my own mouth, waiting until you came back to me.
And here he is sitting in the
I just turned to look at him.
Always good to know. I'm going to read a poem that Shawn particularly fell in love with. I have a number of love poems for my husband who passed away about 1.5 years ago. And this one was written in a workshop by Barbara Drake, in which we had to learn how to write a pantun, which I had never done before. And it's an ancient form. And just for those of you who might not be familiar, you will hear that there's rhyming all through the poem, that there is a circling, repeating kind of lines that will pop up that you'll hear more than once. And I'm just going to read 2 of them. For instance, there's a line that says, "As orchards blaze with apples before dark," and then three lines later, "and silver's apples blazing through full dark." So there's repeated lines and so on. And it's two lovers grafted late is referred to, and it was the second marriage for each of us. We married in our 40s, mid-40s, And then, of course, we had to get used to what the other person thought was important in life.
I was talking about that.
Different deal. You guys know that. So this was written not too long after we had been married. It's called Blaze with Apples. Frost light falls like a blessing on the sheets that twine our bodies close in harvest dreams. The blankets tossed as thighs and mouths repeat the coupling and uncoupling, peach and cream. Our bodies twine as intimate as dreams of ripening, gold apricot and pear. The coupling and uncoupling, peach and cream. The dip and swell of flesh still August bare. Frost seals September's ripening. This pair of lovers grafted root and bud and stalk. In one joined dip and swell that autumn bears as orchards blaze with apples before dark. Two lovers grafted late budded stalk, one shimmer under moon that rhymes each leaf, and silvers apples blazing through fall dark, and lights the bed that heals our separate griefs. Come, shimmer under moon that primes each leaf, fall blankets tossed as mouths and thighs repeat the graft that heals us of our separate grief, the frostlight like a blessing on our sheets.
I just put down my cigarette after that poem. I love that poem so much. Oh my. Of course, the more passionately and completely we love, the more devastating the sorrow, and how much we hurt and feel helpless watching our beloved in pain. By his side. It looks like a black and blue tennis ball jutting out from under his collarbone. This hematoma born from snaking into his wrist, up his arm, through his shoulder, across his chest, down to his heart, to place metal mesh canals one by one by one. The surgeon plays seek and snake for hours, while my husband, feeling all loop-de-loopy, yeah, I'm awake, tries to steady his own arm. Unnecessary agony until a nurse remembers to pull out the armrest. Pain, 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 pain. Sorry, no more oxy yet. Fentanyl? I watch his breathing. Stop, start, stop again. He's so drugged up his brain forgets to breathe. Cannula under his nose not working. Get the mask. I hawkeye the monitor as his O2 level creeps up, 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 a little bit higher. And then waves of peace, a rustling murmuring of air, his old familiar snore whistle. Susurrus, susurrus, susur us.
So my husband was diagnosed with a rare abdominal cancer in 2004, and we fought it together for 20 years. And it was eventually his heart that got to him. But on one of his surgeries, the long incision that he had got infected. And so it was so painful, the fentanyl wasn't working. And so I had to take him to the ER. And the hard part for him was waiting for the shot, because you have to get permission for that shot to be given by the nurse. So this is Not Your Pain for Phil. You are trying to climb out of the body that pain has invaded like wildfire, licking your limbs, your bones, searing your brain. Thrashed on the white sheeted bed, you curl to a ball tighter than fetal, waiting on antidote, prick of the merciful needle brought by the red-headed nurse who hasn't yet gotten permission. Not fire, you tell me, it claws more like lightning striking a live pine, stripping spirals of bark from its trunk. Where is she? Crazy with burn. You're sure our nurse is waylaid, too busy to banish your pain. If only I knew how to peel pain away. I kneel at your side. I lay hopeless hands on your head, clenched flank, murmur this, you are not your pain. This foot's free from pain. This calf, there is nothing in your throat, your fist, your shoulder. Pain burns only here at your belly's stitched scars. A pain limited, local. You can box it to burn in a cellar. Call it a candle rode into a dark, far for the body, not lodged in your soul. All that I have, this handful of words.
As spouses, as caregivers, we dig down deep and we find our hidden strength. We offer our love in comforting words, murmuring, you are not this pain, as Judy did. And we rearrange, making change as needed. Labels. Have you ever noticed the women who linger in the canned food aisle? How they stand there in their comfortable shoes, wearing a modest shade of pink lipstick to perk up an exhausted smile, scrutinizing and scanning each label. Can of cream corn, stewed tomatoes, garbanzo beans, and soup. Is it the calories? Allergies? Price? After weeks in the ICU, he is finally coming home. I pour over every prescription protocol, key in each doctor's number into my phone, make copies of his patient implant card to tuck into my wallet. I buy one of those easy-to-read neon pill caddies, so he never misses a dose from the armada of pills fighting for his failing heart. I scan a list from my pocket. How long have I been standing here, holding this can, reading this label? I get it now. What it means to join the sorority of salt seekers. Our faithful mission, rooting out sodium dangers at every possible turn. I understand these tedious, loving acts and the monumental task to save the hearts that beat in unison with our own.
So I mentioned earlier that this book is about caring for my parents. Mercy was about caring for my husband during all those years of chemo and radiation and surgery. But this one mostly is about my parents, but also in this case about my older son, who not only has ADHD and is bipolar, but had cancer also. He is my son from my first marriage, so no relation to my husband who had cancer. So I had two cancer people at once. He was identified with stage 3 non-Hodgkin's in 2013 and underwent treatment for 5 different cancers for 11 years. And just this last year, he's been in remission for 1 year, counting. So we will see. This poem is called Crabapple, and it has to do with brain cancer he got. It was, again, unusual. It's called oligodendroglioma, which from the Greek means little tree glue. And so they thought they got it the first time after radiation and it came back. So they did it again, harder, longer. And it has not come back for some time. When I wrote this poem, we didn't know that. Crabapple, Malus, which is the scientific name. Shorn of last year's extravagant display, pink-petaled snow on resurrecting grass below, the crabapple in my garden creaks and shudders under February ice. I must trust that still the tree prepares for saprise, its hidden spread of roots and rootlets to feed the emptied crown. Sometimes storm will expose the root wad's grip when a crabapple's canopy topples under winter, the tangled web a maze of stones and boulders thralled in subtle growth, as with my elder son. Just this morning, his brain cancer's greedy branching, exposed by the scanner's penetrating beam. Oligodendroglioma, unrelenting tentacles eel the winding tunnels. I know it's not malice, but I seethe as I watch my son lift his bone china cup of tea, talking of endurance. The cankered growth grows. He awaits radiation, hopes to reach April. May the tree's roots hold, blossoms rise unblasted.
Judy's words, may the tree's roots hold. I think we're all hoping, praying that our country's roots hold. That we all hold steadfast in the face of this threat to our democracy, to human decency. This whole thing about not releasing the Epstein files, protecting these powerful men, probably on both sides of the aisle. Sometimes I think in all the hyperbole, we forget what's at the stake, the big why of why we want these files to be released. And that is to get justice and to protect young women, protect children from these predators. This next poem is based on my own experience, and it's from my book, What She Was Wearing. The victim speaks up, or how I imagine a trial had I had the courage back then. I realize the risk. I may be held in contempt, cuffed, locked away. I'm already quite familiar how restraint feels against my will. My question, Your Honor, you in the black robe, perched high upon your bench, do you know how it feels? Do you know the taste of betrayal? Bitter, iron, rust? From a man you labeled friend. How his fingers tightening around your wrist, nails piercing flesh, feel more frightening, more rigid than cold steel cuffs ever could. Or how sound slips away, your own voice stifled as he calls for help to hold you down.
Thank you. When I opened Shawn's book, which she showed me, I opened it to that poem and looked at the ending and said, you have to read this one. So yes, let's hope the Epstein files become more out. I've been slightly encouraged by no more Prince Andrew being stripped of everything in sight and maybe kicked to the gutter or something.
Yeah.
Mine is on a different topic, also concerned today. This is after a photograph by Diego Herrera Carcedo in Irpin, Ukraine, March 6th, 2022. Still life with gray suitcase. The gray suitcase waits alone on the blown street. Its plastic skin pocks with shot. Its zipper gleams. The little wheels await direction. The suitcase sits, patient as a dog at its master's grave. It is not a dog. It is a locked box, crammed within perhaps a hasty nest of shirts, a comb, a sleeve of snatched family photographs, and the one who packed it, wrecked, body flung like litter to the curb. The hand that held the handle bleeds the street, the rest hidden beneath a faded cloth, flapped open to settle, no, to cover the sight. Someone knelt here by the body, by the stopped suitcase, its abandoned map, then fled. And although we have other poems dealing with things such as this, such as Gaza, and I don't have an ICE poem yet, but there will be one, and some other activities that have been going on in the last 5 to 10 years. We hope to offer you the end yet, to rise at the end here, that there is Doctors Without Borders in Darfur. There are no King's gatherings. And so we offer you each 2 more poems.
Yes, I never get used to the amount of cruelty humans are capable of. And yet, among the heartache of headlines, we have to keep trying to find a way to lift ourselves and each other toward the light, as Judy mentioned. My eternal spring. Yesterday's rain squall was scared away by a moonless night. Yet a whisper of petrichor, still lingering in the air, invites me on a morning stroll before the tasks of the day take their hold. Pummeled daffodils bow their weary heads of submission to the fickleness of an early spring, as I lower mine in the chill of the lion's roar and look forward to the lamb days ahead. Headlines announce another school shooting, another mother pummeled by another senseless act, made even crueler by the paralysis of powerful men who line their pockets with gold. How the town roars and roars and wails and roars. When night falls, my son will read Good Night Moon to his daughter after her splishy, splashy bath. This little girl, swaddled in love for a night of teddy bear dreams. Over 1,000 miles away, I try not to think the unbearable. I keep hope, my eternal spring.
Okay, this will be our last poem, and so I hope you've all been thinking of questions that you'd love to ask us. This is your second invitation. This poem, again, was written after I saw new photographs of Bakhmut in Ukraine, where it looked like after World War I, when they went through the forest and all that was left was stalks of trees and gray. And this poem reaches back to Hiroshima and then moves to today. Through the terrible bright furnace, after seeing new photographs of Bakhmut. After Hiroshima, after so much fire-ripped life and not life, what does survival mean? To stumble blind through blaze, to emerge on the other side of death? The Japanese survivors were pierced by radiating needles. stitched by scarlet threads of loss, child, father, wife. Yet, also in that city, 6 sacred trees, ginkgo bilobas, withstood the searing blast. They bowed before the terrible bright furnace, bowed and burned, but at root refused to be consumed. Hardly spared, they struggled up, stem and shoot unfolding, palms of leaves to promise breeze relief. Today, tomorrow, other war fires spread to more cities, your city, someday perhaps to mine. How can either of us hold a breath for hope, but in these 6 green trees persisting half a world away, still blessing ravaged earth? May each of us pass through blitz and blaze, emerge unbowed, rise again green, to bud, to blossom, to offer shade. Thank you all for coming out on this rainy day and listening.
Thank you.
Wow.
Yes. Let's bud.
Wow.
Let's blossom. Let's keep offering each other shade and kinship. I hope you enjoyed our conversation through our poems. Now we'd like to open the floor to kinship and conversation. So we welcome your questions or thoughts about the themes that we talked about, or about book publishing, or about putting together a chapbook, or what have you.
I'm just interested, did you guys do a lot of work together to figure out what you were going to read and say? Or it just seemed so, it didn't seem rehearsed, but it was beautifully put together and everything fit together. So,
well, we she came up with, she had looked at both of our books and came up with some of the themes that we realized that we were both writing about. And then we each picked our poems, to kind of go on those themes, and kind of helped each other pick some of the poems when we weren't sure, and then just kind of just put it together.
We also had a great lunch together.
Yes, we did.
Hours went by and we
Like
hardly knew it. And we talked about lots of other things dealing with poetry and publishing and spouses and children and so on. And at one point we had way too many poems picked.
Yeah.
Oh, how about
We had
two
a
of
much
these,
longer
two?
show.
And then so I read all of them just in straight order and timed them, and I said, this is too long. We can't do this many. Oh, we're going to have to act some. So we went through and did that and talked back and forth about what order we might do them in, and went from there, because we wanted to give you an experience worth coming out for.
it was. Oh,
So yeah,
for sure.
yeah. So lots of chatting on Zoom, and then the memorable lunch. We decided, we need to go just out to lunch anyhow, because we had such a good time talking.
Yeah.
I just want to add that it makes other readings kind of pale, because it was so beautifully put together and so meaningful and powerful, and they fit together so well, and sometimes readings, they just get about sort of random. They read something and someone else reads sort of random, but it had symmetry.
Absolutely,
Yeah.
absolutely.
We have to say we took as examples Diane Stepp and Bill Siverly read at the end of August, and they had a similar thing. They met more times than we did even, and set it up so they went back and forth. And
As did Paul Ann and Cindy.
Yes.
Yeah.
And we were able to go to some of those, and so we had something to aim for in terms of being prepared and not reading too long, which can happen.
Yes.
And it's just like.
I think that's really good advice for anybody who's going to be doing a poetry reading, whether it's a conversation like this or just doing your own. The secret to making it look natural and feel easy is the preparation that goes behind it. It doesn't usually come off that way if you're just trying to wing it. So,
And I have to put in a pitch for Shawn's poetry box readings that are online, because she is just a consummate presenter, organizer, preparer, and she has it all set up so that people will read certain numbers of poems, and then she will reflect on those and sort of illuminate them even more before we go on to the next reader. So there's one on the evening of the 8th.
the afternoon of the 8th
Afternoon
at 4
of the 8th.
o'clock on
Okay.
Zoom. And if you go to thepoetrybox.com, we have 4 wonderful poets. We have somebody from California, we've got somebody from Oregon, we got somebody from Washington, and where else is the other one from? Do we have 2 Oregon? I can't even remember. But,
You don't have to have memorized.
yeah. But anyway, it's on our website, and you could register for the show. It's free, but they're usually a lot of fun. So you're all invited.
And you can be, in your jammies at home before dinner, and no one will know. You can just keep your face.
Yeah, I only dress up from the waist up anyway.
But it is lovely, and it's clear that a lot of planning goes into it. I don't know, they must pick their own poems, but you give them.
I never know what they're going to read
time.
until they read it.
Wow.
Okay.
They don't tell me in advance. So
But you respond spontaneously to whatever they read. You are able to pick things out of the poems and comment on what they've
yeah,
done.
but plus I know their books,
admire.
because I published them, so I'm pretty intimate with all their collections.
Yes, well,
that helps.
You should be. You should be. So, any other questions about? Yeah.
I'm curious to know, at least I think that a poet's past work certainly informs and influences the future work. And you've got each have a couple of beautiful books there. And, I don't think one does that and goes, oh, thank God that's over. I'm never doing it again. So I'm curious to know, how or if what you've done in the past with those books are informing the work you're doing now, and also what are you writing now that you're really excited about?
It's funny, I hadn't really worked on anything for several years. The pandemic just shut me down. And unlike other people that are like, oh, I have all this time to write because of the pandemic, I was just the opposite. And so it wasn't until I decided, I got to put something together. I put together pockets, and it was half of these poems were already written, and I just accidentally noticed that I was using that word a lot. So every poem in the book Pockets has a pocket in it. And so instead of censoring that out, I leaned into it and kind of expanded on it. And it kept putting the word pocket into my new poems. And then there's a couple in here, one that I read tonight that's about my dad. And for years now, I've been wanting to write a collection kind of telling that story of the journey that my dad and I went on together, and the whole full circle story. So that's the manuscript that I just finished, and that's kind of ready to start kind of sending out and all that kind of stuff. And who knows what'll come next. I have lots of ideas now that I've gotten the bug.
There are times when I look back and think, damn, I was really good back then. I'm writing decent poems now. Is it harder for me? Sometimes it feels like it's harder, but part of that's because I've been dealing a lot with things after my husband's death, plus my son's been in chemo and so on, and so my daily life has taken over a lot of things. But I do have on my 12-item to-do list, I have new 12 items every day, unfortunately. But it now says, get manuscript out. And I have a folder of probably 90 pages of poems. But I know some of those are only B+ poems, and you can't put B+ poems in a manuscript from my point of view. I'm really picky about my own work. And I have been writing a lot of poems about my husband the past year that will probably go into that. So now that my big table is cleared off of all the planning for this, I can get that out and start shuffling through it and go, what was I thinking? This one does not belong in here. Or, oh, in this handout I have here, which is sort of some rules of thumb or guidelines for putting a chapbook together as opposed to a full-length book. Sometimes when you put everything out that you have for a collection, you suddenly discover, I've had this happen twice now, that there needs to be a new poem here that you haven't written yet, which is an appalling thought. Like, oh, I have to start, what will that poem be? What should it be about? What's going to happen? And it worked out really well both times, but I was really happy to find that. So for me, revision, I have a t-shirt that says, revise, you know you want to.
That's a great t-shirt. Oh,
and
gosh.
revision is my favorite thing. Writing first drafts is like going to the dentist for me. It's just like, okay, that last poem was pretty good, but I think that's my last good poem. I'm never going to start out with something good again. And I'm sure a lot of people would go through that.
I revised one of my poems 5 minutes before we left the house.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, for today's reading.
Good for you. Good for you. I once saw Donald Hall was here to do a reading many years ago. And while he was reading, he stopped and took out his pen and made notes on it. And thought, he's revising something that's already published. If he can do it, I can do it, sort of thing. So, I do read a lot of other poets, more and more contemporary ones. I just read a poem this morning called poem from a book, new book from Copper Canyon. And I can't tell you the author's name, but the title is Blood Mercy. And it just knocked me sideways. It's just, wow, just amazing. Another one, which is now, I think it's a National Book Award finalist. Let's see if I can call the name up. Scorched Earth by Tiana Clark.
Oh, I love Tiana Clark.
Just amazing book that makes you think, oh, should I just give up here? Can I go, there's always the comparison. And of course, she and I don't write at all alike, except for a love of language and sound, which is very important to me. So I like to read people who don't write so much like me and see what I could steal, borrow, or imitate, or whatever. But as I say, those first drafts are just really hard. And the last two poems I read, the Still Life with Gray Suitcase and Through the Terrible Bright Furnace, are not in any book yet. They will be in the new manuscript. And no, I don't have a title for it yet. I have several titles, but if I tell you one, then I'll keep thinking that's it, and that's always a mistake. I once, with not this book, but my previous full-length book, I had the title Flight. I knew it was going to be Flight for like years. And I suddenly realized I couldn't divide the poems up into sections the way I wanted to. And I realized the title was in the way. So I wrote Untitled on the front page. And then I went through and wrote down all the titles that could possibly be, pulling them out of the text. And I think I ended up with 50 or something. And it ended up being Red Jess instead, which is pretty far away from Flight. And then I could put the book together. So, sometimes titles too soon are not great.
You didn't finish the example you gave, Judy, which was one poem, all one is missing. How the hell do you know that? Excuse me.
Oh, well, I was down at Playa at a residency, and for some reason they gave me an artist studio, which is a teeny tiny little place you can hardly live in, and then this gigantic room with a sink and what turned out to be a wall you could use with push pins. And so I thought, I can use this. So I used push pins, and I put all the pages of my manuscript across on the push pins. And then I went through, and now I tried not to think of this as too compulsive, but I went through and I color-coded them for what subjects they were or themes they were doing. And then I would read the poems out loud, and I'd get to this one place, and it just felt like there was a break. It didn't flow from one to the next. And I couldn't figure out if I should take a poem out. And I thought, no, I don't want to take those out. And I thought, there needs to be a new poem here. And it was like a flash of lightning. It was pretty exciting to have that thought come true, even though that meant I was going to have to do a new free write before I got to revise again. So sometimes that can be an illumination.
Yes.
Yeah.
I'm curious how you approached that free write. Did you like immerse in the before and after poems?
I was
Mhm.
pretty
Okay.
immersed in the whole thing because I read my work over and over as though I'm doing it for an audience. And so I was really pretty, because I'd done the color coding
Yeah.
and then putting it up on the wall and comments and standing back and looking at it and then reading it all through again and listening to see if there were breaks or gaps or whatever. Then I pretty much knew where I was going with, I guess you'd call it themes or images by then.
Okay.
So I knew it had to be something to link these two. And I can't tell you which poem it was right now. So I can't tell you exactly what that connection was at the time. Someday I should go back and look at it back again and find that poem. But it was a relief to discover there was something I could do about this gap that I found wasn't serving the smooth flow of everything. So I guess we're probably both big fans of reading everything out loud.
Yeah.
I read in
Yeah.
front of my bathroom mirror. For some reason, it feels like doing a reading. Like there's a person there, even though it's me, and that helps me.
I was doing that this morning before the show. Yes.
There we go.
We're so much alike on some of this stuff.
So,
But I think it's fun to find that thread that's going to link from a poem to another. And sometimes it could be a word, sometimes it could be a line. It can be a lot of different things that can link the poems together, especially when you're dealing with a lot of different themes. That was something I always had to work with, putting the Poeming Pigeon and the anthologies together. Was like, okay, now I've picked all these really great poems by all these poets, but what order do they go in? And I like to start with like, this is a great starting poem, this is the great ending poem, and then working toward the middle.
If you have a couple of chapbooks and you're trying to put together a collection, do you sometimes pull poems from the chapbooks, or do you say no, that has already been in that chapbook and that's
can be a touchy question, but it's a very good one. My first collection was a chapbook that was 40 pages, I think, long, so that's on the long side. And it wasn't that long when I sent it in, it just became that long. And so when I thought I should next work on a full-length book, I asked Yusuf Komanyaka if I could take some of the poems and put them into my next book. And he was kind enough to tell me, he said, you could put in 3 or 4, but no more. He said, you can't. And I have seen people sometimes do this. They've taken the chapbook and they plop it into the new book, and then they have more poems with it. And, that makes it seem easier, but you're sort of, my personal opinion, which may not apply to anyone else here, is that you're sort of cheating your readers if they've already read those and they've bought your book and they open it up and go, well, I already have this part, so I'm only getting this many new poems to enjoy. So I took his words seriously. I have moved a couple, maybe 3 poems into the longer book. And I did take one poem, the one I read about the comb, from a longer collection, and I put it in my chapbook, which is usually not okay. But the publisher didn't mind. And it was so perfect in terms of following along that I decided it was probably okay, and luckily she did too. So normally I wouldn't do that.
I think thematically, if it adds to the richness of the book, it's okay. But I agree with not the whole chapbook, and certainly not several of the poems, but 2 or 3. If they really need to be in the other book that's expanding on a theme or whatever, and it fits, when you're putting them up all on the board, then it can work. But writing.
And this is an actual publisher speaking, so pay attention to her.
So there's a lot. I think, when I see a lot of, it's like, mostly when you see lots of poems from different books in one book, it's a selected collection. It's by a really prominent poet, and they've taken their favorite poems from different books or different chapbooks, put them all in a book, and then we'll have plus new. And that's kind of nice as a reader, because maybe you don't have all those books and you don't know. It's like you can buy that book and kind of get a full taste of all the different things they've been writing about. But I think you have to be a really accomplished poet to pull that trick off.
I'm still waiting for someone to call me and say, we'd love to do a really selected reading.
What was your phone number again?
Well, thank you for this. I want to say how much it helped me to have you go back and forth and to move through subjects and not just beautiful. Have focus on your current publishing or your current theme. It just helped me a great deal, particularly